Okay, I've got another video on changing trends in real estate and the movement of people to new locations. This article is from Realtor.com, and is an exodus from high-priced cities looming as more folks work from home. So, as I've talked about a lot in several videos, because of the accelerating effect of the virus, working from home is now a new trend for a much larger number of employers, and that's going to have a huge effect on the location of where people choose to live, and therefore that's going to have an effect on where people choose to move in real estate prices. So let's further read the article now. When Lauren Woolard traveled to New Orleans for Mardi Gras and then to Orlando, Florida to visit an old friend, the New York based publicist thought she'd be back in her itty bitty Bronx studio by the end of March. She was wrong. Instead, Warland, 31, wound up crashing with her friend as COVID tore through New York City. By May, after working remotely for 3 months, she decided to make the move to Central Florida permanent. She discovered she enjoyed living in a smaller city with a slower pace of life. Finding a 3-bed, 2.5-bath townhouse in East Orlando for the same $1,600 a month of her Bronx apartment clinched the deal. She moved in last May. Because in a lot of these cities, the prices for very small apartments are outrageous, and as you move to a smaller city, or metropolitan area, or urban area, you can get a lot more space for the same amount of money. People are reconsidering living in these high priced places, especially now that it's been proved you can work from home, Warland says. Her spacious rental has amenities like an in-unit washer and dryer, a 2-car garage, and lake views. I sometimes walk into the house and go, should I do cartwheels? What should I do with all this space? Warland is far from alone. The new realities of pandemic life is leading to more and more city-dwelling Americans to reevaluate their living situations, and the long-term ramifications for the nation's hottest urban hubs could be vast and transformational. With no access to the usual perks of urban life, nightlife, sports events, spending a small fortune for a cramped apartment or condo seems to make a lot less sense, and early preliminary data suggests more die-hard or urbanites are seeking new homes in towns or smaller cities. That, together with the fact that big employers, including tech titans Facebook and Twitter, are more amenable to their employees working from home, means that workers may be losing their ties to hugely expensive, job-rich cities like New York or Seattle. That conversation is occurring in a lot of households in America right now. Why are we living here at this high cost, in this intense, stressful, crowded environment, when we can take our jobs and move someplace less crowded and less expensive? Says Patrick Carsile, chief market analyst in the San Francisco Bay Area for real estate brokerage Compass. Renters and the very wealthy, who can more easily change residences on short notice, are leading the charge in seeking out safe, standalone homes with yards, enough space to school the kids, work in a real home office, and entertain friends, someday. Estimates vary on how many Americans are working remotely during the pandemic. The National Bureau of Economic Research found that 37% of jobs can be performed from home, with higher percentages in expensive tech centers like San Francisco, Silicon Valley's San Jose, and Boston. These tend to be higher paying jobs. I'd imagine a higher sector of employment in New York City is also like office work and management, and the types of jobs that are more remote workable. The great work from home experiment seems to have been successful enough that some other companies, including Square, are pledging to make it permanent nationwide. Nationwide, a financial services company is closing just over half its offices. Those who worked in those locations will now be able to telecommute permanently. About half of remote workers polled by Gallup recently would prefer to continue working from home once their offices reopen. Since I didn't have to go into an office, I didn't need to be pinned to a certain city, says Warland. There likely won't be a mass exodus from big cities in the short term, but there are signs the landscape is already shifting, as housing prices are beginning to fall in the most expensive but wealthy cities. In notoriously high-priced San Francisco, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment dropped 11% in July compared with a year ago. Rents were down 8% in Silicon Valley's San Jose to $2,300, 3.6% in Los Angeles, and 2.7% in Seattle. They also dipped 1.7% annually to $2,890 in New York City. Prices typically slip when demand falls. People are paying these high rents, and right now they don't have any of the advantages of living in the city. What's unclear is whether homeowners will follow suit. They typically move slower than renters. While people who are already living in a place don't even have to move, first-time buyers just have to change where they're looking for stuff and shift their demand, and we'd see the movement in the prices. Since they have to worry about selling their property, or at least renting it out, these days they might also be concerned about having potentially infected buyers tramp through. Selling one's house and finding another place to live is not something you could do at the drop of a hat, says Carsile. For people who own houses, they're thinking, is this the time I want to be selling my biggest asset? In Manhattan, median co-op and condo sales prices fell 17% to $1 million in the second quarter of the year, according to a recent Douglas Elliman report. The report did not look at Northern Manhattan, which includes Harlem, so this is just like core Manhattan, and not the upper part of it, which is more like an outer borough. The large drop may be at least partly due to fewer sales and a more big-ticket purchases in the previous year to avoid a mansion tax that made luxury home sales more expensive for buyers. It was a bit more complicated in San Francisco. House prices rose about 3% year over year to reach an all-time median high of $1.8 million in June, according to Compass. Condos didn't fare as well. Prices dropped 4% to $1,200,000 as the market for them cooled a bit. These trends will unfold slowly, says Realtor.com chief economist Daniel Hale. You're talking about people uprooting their whole lives. Employers may rethink office policies and location. Many companies are looking into creating a hybrid work-from-home model where employees come into the office for only part of the week, says Brian Krupp, chief of the research in human resources practice at Gartner, a research consultancy. This will limit exposure to the virus and make it easier to maintain distancing. But with fewer people using shared office space, some executives will likely realize they can downsize the amount of space they need. While it may be tough to break long-term commercial leases, they may choose to at least partly shut down some of that space to cut maintenance costs. And again, if they, let's say, sublease some of that space, that's going to completely crush any new demand for new office space from new companies, and the market is still going to be affected, even if technically no one breaks their leases. Kropp estimates that it costs companies about 20% of each employee's salary and overhead costs to have them come into an office for 5 days a week. Businesses might also choose to get rid of centralized corporate offices and open smaller offices in less expensive, more far-flung locales. Even after COVID, offering workers the option of telecommuting could give businesses more flexibility to hire talent in other parts of the country or the world. Meanwhile, workers can get a larger house with more land for a lower price the farther from the city center they go, and an extreme commute may not be so bad if it's only once or twice a week. You'll see spreading out to the suburbs and even farther out, says Krupp. If you're working remotely, there's no difference between being 30 miles and 300 miles away. Many of real estate agent James Harris' clients were living in apartments or condos in LA or even East Coast cities until the pandemic made that unbearable. Now they're seeking bigger, single-family houses farther out where they don't have to share common spaces with the neighbors. Buyers and renters are having a heightened appreciation for space, he says. Well, again, one thing I keep saying is that the suburbs or the immediate environs of these big cities are almost as outrageously expensive as the core downtown areas. So, if you can leave the urban area entirely and go to a different, smaller city or metro, I don't see why you wouldn't just do that. Because the prices there would be actually affordable. Don't count out the big cities just yet. Some of the appeal of working from home in a more remote location will likely wear thin eventually. Most workers and companies will learn that it's harder to do team building or develop effective leadership when you're not with the same person. Says Randall Dunham, Director of Executive Global Studies at the University of Wisconsin. He anticipates only a quarter of workers will want to stay 100% remote, and those are folks who may be tempted to move. Plus, big cities have weathered natural disasters and human-made crises before, and come out on the other side. Right now, we're at peak hysteria, so there are many doomsayer scenarios for the fall of New York, says New York-based real estate appraiser Jonathan Miller. After 9/11, the same thing happened. Within about 3 years, the urban-suburban move reversed. Well, I will say that 9/11 was a one-off blip and aberration, while the rise of work from home is a deep structural change in the nature of how work, commuting, and the economy is done. And also, with the rise of work from home, you're not chained to any one particular urban area at all, so you completely move cities. Once a vaccine becomes widely available, those who left urban areas may feel safe enough to return. People who want to move to New York, people wanted to move to San Francisco. That was their dream, says Compressed Carsile. Some of the magic has definitely worn thin over the last couple of months. Whether that magic will come back, I don't know. So that's it for the article. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, go to the channel page for more videos, share this video with anyone you think might be interested, and subscribe to my Subscribe Star page.